Hey, so I wanted to go ahead and give my thoughts with the new James Gunn Superman movie coming out. I've been doing a Superman review series, and today I'm going to be talking about the second Rage movie, Superman 2. And for me personally, I'm going to go ahead and discuss both the theatrical version that was originally released and the Richard Donner cut, which was released in 2006. Because while there are a vast amount of differences, I do feel that if I tried to make two different videos, it would kind of come off a little bit of repetitive, and I don't really want to make a repetitive review series. When I do the ranking, I do plan on ranking Superman 2 versus the Richard Donner cut. Like they will be on several placements in the ranking. I haven't decided quite yet exactly where they're going to land. But I imagine that they're probably going to land roughly in more or less the same area. But yeah, like I mentioned with my review of the 1978 version of Superman the movie, one thing to keep in mind with these two films, with the 1978 Superman movie and this movie, Superman 2 in particular, is that this is a first time watch for me in 2025. Uh, it is just recently that I decided to binge through all of the Superman movies, live action and animated. I think it was like 34, 35, somewhere in that general area. It's somewhere in like 33 and 35. It's in that ballpark. But for the most part, I don't have a very vast history of Superman. Like my history of Superman is very, uh, the first Superman movie that I remember watching Superman Returns briefly at a friend's house when I was younger. They had it on, and it was about halfway through the movie, and they just happened to be watching it, and I sat down and tried to watch it, and I had so little interest in it that I ended up falling asleep. Like I don't know if I just, and I'll get to that movie um, down the road, having watched it in its full entirety, but and because I definitely have thoughts about that movie as well. But it wasn't until 2013 with Man of Steel that I actually sat down and watched a Superman related project, movie or TV show, from start to finish. And that's what got me into Superman. Like, that's what got me interested. And, like, since then, I've seen, stuff like Superman Man Tomorrow and the animated movie Superman Man Tomorrow. I've read through a couple of Superman comics, like Death of Superman. I've actually recently picked up a couple of new comics. Well, not new, but like new for me. I recently picked up All Star Superman. Um, I picked up a book, Superman Smashes the Klan. I picked up a prequel novel coming out a that's supposed to be a tie-in to the upcoming Superman movie. Sometime this week or next week, I believe they're coming out with a version of Superman Birthright that I've heard is supposed to be really good, and looking forward to looking into that. But yeah, in regards to the movies, the Christopher Reeves films, as well as the other films, these are first time watch. And so, for me personally, I think Superman 2 is a little bit more enjoyable than Superman the movie, just for the fact that, like, it gets started pretty quick. Like, you have a little bit of a recap at the beginning, like showing the trial of, like, General Zod and them from the first movie. It's interesting. And it's a lot better paced, in my opinion, than the first movie. With the first movie, you don't get to see Superman for like an hour until you actually get into it. But overall, I think the way the story is handled is pretty fun. The theatrical version starts off with this kind of like you have something going on where there's like these terrorists doing, they're trying to plant a bomb in the Eiffel Tower, and so you have Um, you have the whole idea of they plant a bomb in the Eiffel Tower, and Superman has to go and stop them, and Lois Lane ends up being there, and he has to save her. Um, when you get to the actual when you get General Zod and his two minions, Ursa and Non, when they end up escaping the Phantom Zone, it's pretty interesting. I believe it's implied in. I'm pretty sure in the theatrical version that it's due to an explosion due to there's a bomb. The Superman takes the bomb from Paris and throws it into the atmosphere, and that's what causes them to escape the Phantom Zone. To where in the Richard Donner cut, if I'm not mistaken, it's the missile, one of the missiles that he caused to blow up at the end of that movie, like one of the bombs that he threw into space in the 1978 version. Um, in regards to General Zod and Ursa and Non, I think they do decent enough for what they're given in the movie, and I definitely enjoy them to an extent. But for me personally, I'm not really that fond of Terrence Stamp as General Zod. He just doesn't really click with me. Personally, I mean, I need to rewatch Man of Steel. That's still coming up. Personally, I kind of prefer Michael Shannon's version of General Zod and the way he's handled in that movie. I know Man of Steel has its number of controversies with which we will get into. That will be explored. But as far as Superman 2, Terrence Stamp does good. I enjoy him enough. Um, I personally think that his lieutenant, I guess you would call her, Ursa, she's a little bit more enjoyable. Uh, Terrence Stamp is just a little bit too serious, and he's almost too serious, and it's a little distracting at some points. But yeah, um, Non, nothing really to say much about him. He's kind of just he's generic henchman character. There's nothing really to say about him. He's just a character that is just there. That's about the depth you get to him, and he's there to be the muscle. He's interesting enough. I enjoy enough of what he does. The three Kryptonian villains, decent enough. Again, when you get into Lex Luthor, much like I said with the first film, Lex Luthor doing real estate schemes. Oh, I want Australia, so you can. If you give me Australia, then I'll help you destroy Superman. And it's that's just random as hell that he wants Australia, for property reasons. Again, I guess okay. Um, Likewise, I'm not that big of a fan of the story we get where you have Superman deciding to give his powers. I understand what they were trying to do with the whole idea of his duality between Clark Kent and Superman. Never really worked for me. And it's not that Superman. It very rarely works for me in any of those types of movies. The only movie that kind of struggle really actually resonates with me is Spider-Man 2, the Tobey Maguire Sam Raimi movie. I enjoyed the storyline in that movie, but when it's done in other movies, I don't get into it. And likewise, the way that you end up getting Superman in the movie, he gives up his powers, and then when he gets back his powers, and the theatrical cut, it just happens off screen. It happens. And it's okay, he goes to the Fortress of Solitude, and he's deliberately told in both versions of the theatrical and the Richard cut that yeah, if you do this, there's no going back, and it's oh, okay, well, actually, if you do this, And in the theatrical version, it happens off screen. In the Richard Donner cut, there is a little bit of a sacrifice where like Jarrell is like the hologram of Jarrell is like he can give up his essence, and it will help give like Superman like it'll bring him back. I thought that was kind of interesting of it add more weight and you actually get to see how he gets his powers back. Um, Margot Kidder as Lois Lane. I enjoy her in the movie, but both versions have her like the whole idea of she is so sure that she knows that Clark Kent is Superman that in both versions she nearly kills herself, and it doesn't come off of it. For me, it comes off kind of just like uh, obnoxious, and also like it's one of those scenarios to where it's like to an extent like she it really just it doesn't work. Where like in the theatrical version, she throws herself into a river and she's like, "Oh well, Superman will save me," and technically he does, but it's like he kind of makes her save herself. And then in the Richard Donner cut, like he makes her fall into a fruit stand, and it's kind of like, okay, and it's played more almost kind of like slapstick almost. Um, I do think that it was somewhat of a better choice of the way that he is revealed to be Superman to her in the Richard R. cut, where in the theatrical version, he's just kind of a klutz and he falls and lands his hand in a fire and burn, and she notices that his hand isn't burned, and it's like, oh, well, you must be Superman, like, and he has to tell her. To where in the Richard R. cut, she tricks him with like a gun loaded with blanks, where I do think it is kind of interesting to show that she is to show a little bit more that she is kind of a little more cunning and a little more cunning and resourceful. It works. Like it, their dynamic is still pretty good. I buy into the romance they have, but me personally, I enjoy Margot Kidder as Lois Lane, but there are some times where she can be a little frustrating. This movie especially, I think she does have moments to where it is kind of a little, yeah. Again, this is somebody watching it in 2025. I still think Christopher Reeves does good in the film. I enjoy him. Gene Hackman does a good performance. I enjoy his performance, but I'm just not a fan of like real estate. Oh, give me Australia, Gene Hackman. That's not the Lex Luthor I enjoy. Me personally, while I've only seen some episodes of it, I think Michael Rosenbaum in Smallville, I enjoy his version of Lex Luthor. I think he's pretty good. And yeah, we don't really talk about Jesse Eisenberg. Uh, there's flavors of what he was doing in Batman v Superman that was potential to be interesting, but at the same time, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, we don't talk about that. Like, it's like it could have been done better. But yeah, also in the theatrical version, it's very heavily implied that Superman just kills General Zod and his minions. In the Richard R. cut, they revisit the whole idea of him turning back time by spinning the Earth around, and it kind of works a little bit better where you actually get a little more of an ending. Overall, I think to where like I think the Richard Donner the theatrical cut it has moments to where it just kind of does segments and ends and doesn't really explore what it's doing. And the Richard R. cut reinforces and puts in some of those scenes to where it's a little bit better. But yeah, overall, Superman 2 thought it was a solid film. Would love to hear your thoughts down below in the comment section below. What do you think of Superman 2? Did you enjoy it more compared to Superman in the movie? Did you enjoy it less? What do you think about like Superman 3 and Superman 4 The First Peace? What was your introduction to Superman? Let me know in the comments down below. And talk to you later. Bye.